The wine glass trembled between my fingers, catching the amber light of the chandeliers that hung above the hotel bar. I'd chosen this place because it was far from my usual haunts, a high-end establishment where no one would recognize the exhausted single mother struggling to rebuild her life. The silk blouse I'd splurged on clung uncomfortably to my skin, a costume that didn't quite fit the woman I'd become. "Another Pinot Grigio, Ms. Ellis." The bartender's voice pulled me from my thoughts. "No, thank you." I checked my watch. My friend Megan was 20 minutes late. Typical. Another night where I'd dressed up and ventured out, only to be forgotten. The weight of the past 2 years settled heavily on my shoulders, a familiar ache that never quite disappeared. I'd lost everything when Mike left. The house, our savings, even my dignity. He'd emptied our joint account the day before, telling me it was over, leaving nothing but divorce papers and a mountain of debt. Single motherhood wasn't the life I'd planned. But for Lily, my 4-year-old daughter, I'd wear any mask necessary, even this one, pretending I was fine, that I could afford to sit in places like this. The message from Megan lit up my screen. "Sorry, Emma. Can't make it. Rain check? Of course. I should have known." I downed the remaining wine, the bitterness matching my mood. As I gathered my purse, I sensed a shift in the atmosphere. The murmur of conversation dipped, like a collective held breath. He entered through the main doors, and even before I looked up, I felt his presence, a gravitational pull that commanded attention. 3 men in dark suits scanned the room before he stepped in. Tall, broad-shouldered, with olive skin and raven black hair that was neatly combed back from a face too severe to be called handsome, yet too magnetic to ignore. Our eyes met for the briefest moment across the dimly lit room. His were dark, unreadable, yet I felt stripped bare under his gaze. I looked away first, my cheeks burning as I fumbled with my credit card. When I glanced up again, he was being escorted to a private booth. A quiet conversation with the manager suggesting he wasn't a regular guest but someone who required special accommodation. "It's been taken care of." The bartender pushed my card back toward me. "I'm sorry?" "Your bill." The gentleman covered it. I turned, finding the man watching me from his booth, the slightest nod acknowledging my confused expression. A chill raced down my spine. Not fear, exactly, but something primal and warning. "Please tell him thank you, but I can pay my own way." I pushed my card forward again. The bartender looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, I don't think—" "It's all right, Anthony." The voice came from behind me, deep and smooth like aged whiskey. "The lady wants to pay her own bill." I turned, startled by his proximity. Up close, the air around him seemed charged with quiet intensity. His suit was clearly custom-made, the fabric too perfect, the fit too precise. The scent of expensive cologne mingled with something earthier, leather, perhaps, and the faintest trace of cigar smoke. "I appreciate the gesture, but it wasn't necessary," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. His mouth curved slightly. "Not necessary, no. But I've found that the most interesting things rarely are." His accent was subtle, Italian perhaps, smoothed by years of American English. Something about him seemed vaguely familiar, as if I'd seen his face before, though I couldn't place where. Before I could respond, movement at the entrance caught my eye. Mike, my ex-husband, with the woman he'd left me for. Younger, blonder, draped in jewelry I recognized from our joint account statements after we'd separated. I froze, panic rising in my throat. I wasn't ready for this confrontation. Not here, not looking like this, trying and failing to appear unbroken. "Is something wrong?" The stranger followed my gaze. "My ex," I whispered, something desperate clawing inside me. "He can't see me here alone, not like this." Understanding flickered in those dark eyes. Before I could register what was happening, he'd moved closer, his hand coming to rest at the small of my back. The weight of it was both reassuring and dangerous. "Can you kiss me?" The words tumbled out before I could stop them. "My ex-husband is watching." For a moment, he went completely still. Then something shifted in his expression, a predatory focus that made my breath catch. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice dropping lower. "Emma. Emma Ellis." His eyes widened fractionally, a reaction so subtle I might have imagined it. His hand moved from my back to my face, thumb brushing my cheek with surprising gentleness. "Well, Emma Ellis." He said my name as if testing how it felt on his tongue. "I believe you asked me for something." His lips met mine with controlled restraint, but the effect was electric. My hands instinctively gripped the lapels of his jacket as the room seemed to tilt around us. What I'd intended as a show became something else entirely, a moment of connection that burned through the emptiness I'd carried for months. When he pulled away, his expression had changed, something calculating behind the heat in his eyes. "He's still watching," he murmured. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation somewhere more private." Warning bells sounded distantly in my mind, but they were drowned by the thrill of being wanted, of being seen, truly seen, for the first time in years. As he guided me toward the exit, his hand possessive at my waist, I caught Mike's stunned expression. The satisfaction was intoxicating. The stranger led me through the lobby toward the elevators, his security detail materializing around us with practiced efficiency. Only then did reality begin to seep back in. What was I doing? I didn't know this man, this obviously powerful, dangerous man who commanded rooms without speaking. "I should go," I said, stopping abruptly. "Thank you for helping me, but—" "Daniel," he supplied, watching me with that same unnerving intensity. Daniel Russo. The name hit me like a physical blow. Daniel Russo, the businessman whose face occasionally graced the financial sections, whose name was whispered in certain circles. The man rumored to have connections that stretched far beyond his legitimate enterprises. The man who, I suddenly realized, had employed Mike as a financial advisor before everything fell apart. "You know who I am," he observed, and it wasn't a question. "My ex-husband worked for one of your companies." I took a step back. I should really get home to my daughter. His expression softened imperceptibly at the mention of my child. "Of course. My driver can take you." "That's not necessary. It's past midnight and it's raining." His tone left no room for argument. "I insist." Before I could protest further, we were outside, a sleek black car pulling up as if summoned by his mere presence. The driver stepped out, opening the door with a deference that spoke volumes. "Thank you for the rescue," I said, trying to regain some control over the situation. "I'm sorry for involving you in my personal drama." Daniel studied me for a long moment. "Mike Ellis," he said finally, the name sounding like a curse on his lips. "He worked in my financial department until 2 years ago. Left rather suddenly, as I recall." My stomach twisted. Yes. Interesting coincidence, but the way he said it made it clear he didn't believe in coincidences. The rain was coming down harder now, drumming against the awning above us. I needed to leave, to break whatever spell had momentarily overcome my better judgment. "Goodbye, Mr. Russo." I moved toward the waiting car. His hand caught mine, the touch sending another jolt through me. He pressed a business card into my palm, closing my fingers around it. "When you're ready to tell me what he took from you," Daniel said quietly, "call this number." I stared at him, confusion and fear, and something else entirely battling within me. "What makes you think he took anything?" Daniel's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Men like your ex-husband always take something that doesn't belong to them." He stepped back, the rain casting shadows across his face. "And I always get back what's mine, Emma Ellis." The drive home was a blur, my mind racing with questions. How much did Daniel Russo know about Mike's sudden departure from his company? About the money that had disappeared? About me? As the car pulled up to my modest apartment building, the driver handed me an envelope. "Mr. Russo requested this be given to you." Inside was a stack of $100 bills and a note in elegant handwriting, "For the daughter of a brave mother." No strings attached. I should have returned it. Instead, I thought of Lily's upcoming birthday, of the mounting medical bills from her last asthma attack, of the eviction notice tucked in my drawer. I clutched the envelope to my chest, knowing I had just made a deal with a devil whose terms I didn't understand. What I couldn't know then was that Daniel Russo had been watching me long before tonight. That my chance encounter was anything but chance. That the kiss that had set my world on fire was merely the first spark in what would become an inferno. Because Daniel Russo wasn't just a businessman with questionable connections. He was the man my ex-husband had stolen from, and now, somehow, he thought I belonged to him too. The next morning, I woke to Lily's small hand patting my cheek. Her dark curls were wild from sleep, her eyes, so like mine, wide and innocent. "Mommy, it's pancake day," she whispered, as if sharing a state secret. "Friday, our ritual." For a moment, I let myself forget the strange encounter from the night before, focusing instead on my daughter's smile, on the simple joy of our traditions. "With blueberries?" I asked, already knowing the answer. She nodded solemnly. "And chocolate chips." The envelope from Daniel Russo lay hidden in my bedside drawer, its contents both salvation and burden. I'd counted the money after Lily had fallen asleep. $5,000. An impossible sum that could solve so many immediate problems, yet one that came with invisible strings I could feel pulling taut around me. As I mixed pancake batter, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I hope you slept well, Emma. The car will remain at your disposal today." My fingers hovered over the screen. How did he get my number? I hadn't given it to him. The realization sent a chill through me, one that warred with the unexpected warmth of being remembered, considered. "Who's that, Mommy?" Lily asked, standing on her tiptoes to peer at my phone. I set it down quickly. "No one, sweetheart. Just work." The lie tasted bitter but necessary. I'd worked hard to create a stable environment for her after Mike left, to shield her from the harsh realities of our situation. After dropping Lily at preschool, I drove to the accounting firm where I worked. The sleek black car followed at a discreet distance, a shadow I couldn't shake. It should have frightened me. Instead, I found myself checking my reflection in the rearview mirror more often than necessary, wondering if Daniel himself was watching. My cubicle felt smaller than usual, the fluorescent lights harsher. As I sorted through client files, my mind kept returning to Daniel's words. "When you're ready to tell me what he took from you, call this number." How did he know? Had Mike stolen from him too? The questions circled like hungry wolves. "Emma?" My boss, Sandra, appeared at my desk. "There's someone here to see you." My heart leapt, irrationally expecting Daniel's imposing figure. Instead, Mike stood in the reception area, looking as polished and unrepentant as ever in his designer suit. The sight of him, once so familiar, now so foreign, sent anger rushing through me. "What do you want?" I asked, keeping my voice low. "I'm working." His smile was all artificial charm, the same smile that had once convinced me he'd love me forever. "Can a guy check on the mother of his child?" "You haven't checked on either of us in months. Why now?" His eyes narrowed slightly. "I saw you last night, at the Bellamy Hotel." Of course, this wasn't concern. It was wounded pride. "And?" I crossed my arms. "And I'm curious about your new friend." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Do you have any idea who Daniel Russo is?" The way he said the name, with fear barely masked by bravado, confirmed my suspicions. "Why don't you tell me, Mike, since you worked for him?" A muscle twitched in his jaw. "That man is dangerous, Emma." "Whatever you think you're doing." "What I'm doing?" Indignation flared hot in my chest. "I'm surviving. I'm raising our daughter alone while you're off spending money you stole from us." He grabbed my arm, fingers digging painfully. "Keep your voice down." "Let go of me." I twisted away, aware of my coworkers pretending not to watch. "You need to stay away from Russo," he hissed. "You have no idea what you're getting involved in." "Like you stayed away from his money?" The words were out before I could stop them. Mike's face drained of color. "What did he tell you?" "Nothing." "But your reaction just did." Understanding dawned, cold and clear. "You didn't just steal from me, did you? You stole from him." He glanced around nervously. "This isn't about that." "Then what is it about, Mike?" I demanded. "Because in 2 years, you haven't once warned me about the men I date." "Not that there have been many, since I've been too busy working 3 jobs to keep a roof over our daughter's head." Something like shame flickered across his face before vanishing. "Just listen to me for once. Whatever he's offering you, it's not worth it. He doesn't forgive, and he doesn't forget." He ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair. "Why do you think we had to leave so suddenly?" The pieces clicked into place, the unexplained urgency of our divorce, the way he'd insisted on moving across town immediately afterward, his paranoia about our financial records. "Get out," I said quietly. "Emma, get out, or I'll tell security you're harassing me." I turned back toward my desk. "And Mike? The next time you decide to give fatherly advice, try paying your child support first." I watched through the glass doors as he stalked to his car, phone already pressed to his ear. My hands trembled as I sank into my chair. Whatever game I'd stumbled into was larger and more dangerous than I'd imagined. By noon, I couldn't focus. The weight of Mike's warning, coupled with the mysterious envelope of cash, pressed down on me. I called Lily's preschool to check on her, an unfamiliar anxiety gnawing at my stomach. She was fine, finger painting and blissfully unaware of the complications swirling around her mother. As I hung up, my phone buzzed with another text from the unknown number. "Your ex-husband paid you a visit. Are you all right?" I froze, eyes darting to the windows, the parking lot beyond. The black car was still there, but how could he know about Mike, unless... "Are you having me watched?" I typed back before I could reconsider. The response came immediately. "I protect what interests me." A shiver ran through me, not entirely unpleasant. I knew I should be frightened, should block the number and return the money. Instead, I found myself typing again. "Why do I interest you?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "Have dinner with me tonight, and I'll answer your questions." I stared at the screen. Everything within me screamed that this was a terrible idea, yet beneath the warning bells rang another sound. Opportunity. Daniel Russo knew things about my ex-husband, about the money that had vanished, about the sudden collapse of the life I'd built. And perhaps, just perhaps, he could help me rebuild it. I can't. I have my daughter. The response was immediate. Bring her. The suggestion was so unexpected it made me blink. Dangerous crime lords didn't host dinner parties for single mothers and their preschoolers, did they? That's not a good idea. I disagree. 7 o'clock. The car will pick you both up. Unless you're afraid? The challenge was clear, and something rebellious stirred within me. For 2 years, I'd been the responsible one, the careful one, while Mike lived without consequences. Maybe it was time for me to take a risk. "We'll be ready at 7. The workday crawled by, each minute stretching like taffy. By the time I picked up Lily from preschool, my nerves were frayed to breaking. "Mommy, why are you making that face?" Lily asked as I helped her into her booster seat. "What face, sweetie?" "You're thinking too hard face." She scrunched up her nose in imitation, like when the bills come. "Out of the mouths of babes. We're going somewhere special for dinner tonight," I said, deflecting. Her eyes lit up. "McDonald's?" I laughed, some of the tension easing. "Even better. A new friend invited us." At home, I stood before my closet, the inadequacy of my wardrobe suddenly glaring. The nicest dress I owned was the one I'd worn last night, hardly appropriate for a second wearing. Behind it hung a red dress I'd bought before Lily was born, when Mike and I still went on dates. I pulled it out, surprised to find it still had the tags. A lifetime ago, I'd been saving it for a special occasion that never came. The silk felt cool against my skin as I slipped it on, the color vibrant against my pale complexion. It was more daring than anything I'd worn in years. The neckline lower, the fit more snug. I almost took it off immediately, but then caught sight of my reflection. The woman looking back at me wasn't just a struggling mother or abandoned wife. She was someone who could command attention, who could take risks. I helped Lily into her favorite dress, a purple confection with enough tulle to satisfy any 4-year-old's princess fantasies. As I brushed her dark curls, so like my own, she chattered excitedly about meeting a new friend. "Is it a prince?" she asked seriously. "In my book, the mommy meets a prince, and he has a castle." My chest tightened. "No, sweetie. He's just a businessman." How did one explain Daniel Russo to a child? And I don't think he has a castle. Does he have a swimming pool? I laughed despite myself. I have no idea. At precisely 7, my phone buzzed. The car was waiting. Taking a deep breath, I gathered my daughter and my courage and stepped outside. The same driver from last night held the door open, his expression softening slightly at the sight of Lily. As we settled into the plush leather seats, Lily's eyes went wide with wonder. "Mommy, it's like a spaceship," she whispered, running her hands over the seats. The drive took us out of the city, through neighborhoods that grew progressively more exclusive. Eventually, we turned onto a private road that wound through immaculately landscaped grounds, before revealing a sprawling estate perched on a cliff top overlooking the ocean. It wasn't a castle, but it wasn't far off. Security gates swung open as we approached, guards stationed discreetly along the driveway. My anxiety returned tenfold. What was I thinking? Bringing my child to the home of a man whispered to have connections to organized crime. A man who, just last night, had kissed me with such controlled passion it had left me breathless. "Are we here?" Lily asked, as the car stopped before massive double doors. "Yes," I managed, throat dry. "Remember your manners, okay?" She nodded solemnly. No elbows on the table, no talking with my mouth full, a pause. "Do I have to eat vegetables?" Before I could answer, the car door opened, and there he was, Daniel Russo, dressed more casually than last night in dark slacks and a crisp white shirt open at the collar, yet still radiating the same commanding presence. His eyes found mine first, something like appreciation flickering in their depths as he took in the red dress. Then his gaze shifted to Lily, and his expression changed, softened in a way I wouldn't have thought possible. He crouched down to her level, a gesture so unexpected it left me momentarily speechless. "You must be Lily," he said, his voice gentler than I'd heard it. "Your mother has told me about you." Lily, normally shy with strangers, studied him with frank curiosity. "Do you have a swimming pool?" she asked without preamble. A genuine smile transformed his severe features. "As a matter of fact, I do. Perhaps another time your mother might bring your swimming clothes," she beamed, turning to me with triumph. "See, Mommy? I told you." Daniel straightened, offering his hand to help me from the car. The brief contact sent that same electric current through me. "The red suits you," he murmured, close enough that only I could hear. "Thank you for inviting us," I said formally, trying to establish some boundary, some normalcy in this surreal situation. He inclined his head slightly. "Thank you for coming. Both of you." His hand settled at the small of my back, guiding us inside. The foyer opened into a home that was both opulent and tasteful. Soaring ceilings, marble floors, art that even I could tell was museum quality. Yet there were surprising touches of warmth. Fresh flowers, comfortable-looking furniture, shelves lined with books that appeared well-read rather than decorative. "Your home is beautiful," I said, because it was expected, because the silence between us felt too charged. "It serves its purpose." He watched Lily as she stared wide-eyed at a massive aquarium built into one wall. "Most of my guests are not as appreciative as your daughter. Most of your guests are probably not 4 years old." His mouth curved slightly. "True." He gestured toward an adjoining room. "I thought we might eat on the terrace. The view at sunset is worth seeing." As if on cue, a woman appeared. Not a maid, but someone whose bearing suggested more authority. "Mr. Russo, dinner is ready whenever you are." "Thank you, Maria." He turned to Lily. "Miss Lily, Maria has prepared something special for children tonight. Would you like to see?" My daughter, traitor that she was, slipped her hand trustingly into his much larger one. "Is it pizza? I love pizza." "Even better," he promised, leading us through the house. The terrace overlooked the ocean, the setting sun painting the sky in vivid streaks of gold and crimson. A table had been set with fine china and crystal, the effect somewhat diminished by the plastic princess plate at one setting, and the small vase of wildflowers clearly chosen with a child in mind. He'd prepared for her coming. The realization sent a confused jumble of emotions through me. Gratitude, suspicion, and something warmer I didn't dare name. As we settled at the table, I caught Daniel watching me with that same intense focus. "You have questions," he said quietly, while Lily exclaimed over her special macaroni and cheese. "Now is the time to ask them." I took a steadying breath. "What did my husband take from you?" Daniel's expression darkened. $2 million. transferred through a series of offshore accounts. And something far more valuable. What? His eyes held mine, unwavering. The location of my sister and her son. The admission hung between us, unexpected and weighty. I set down my fork, appetite suddenly gone. Your sister? I repeated, trying to make sense of this new information. Daniel's jaw tightened, a muscle working beneath the skin. Sophia was in witness protection. She testified against our father 10 years ago when the FBI finally built a case against him. The implications settled like stones in my stomach. If Daniel's father had been investigated by the FBI, if his sister had needed witness protection. Your family is involved in organized crime, I said quietly, glancing at Lily, who was happily engrossed in her dinner, oblivious to the conversation. Was, he corrected. My father died in prison 3 years ago. And you? His dark eyes met mine. I've built my businesses through legitimate means, Emma, but yes, I still have connections to that world. It's not something one simply walks away from. I should have been frightened, should have gathered Lily and fled. Instead, I found myself wondering what it must have been like for him, carrying that legacy while trying to forge a different path. What happened to your sister? I asked. Pain flickered across his face before he masked it. 2 years ago, her location was compromised. She and my nephew disappeared. I've been searching for them ever since. 2 years ago. The same time Mike had cleaned out our accounts and demanded a rapid divorce. You think Mike had something to do with it? It wasn't a question. Daniel's expression hardened. I know he did. Your husband worked in my financial department. He had access to sensitive information, including transfers I made to ensure my sister and nephew were cared for. I shook my head, disbelief warring with a horrible certainty. Mike couldn't. He sold that information to someone who wanted to find her. Daniel's voice was cold now, controlled fury beneath the surface. Whether he knew exactly what he was doing or just saw a payday, the result was the same. Sophia and Marco vanished. Are they? I couldn't finish the question. Dead? I don't believe so. The people looking for them would want me to know if they were. He reached for his wine glass, knuckles white around the stem, their leverage. The pieces were fitting together, forming a picture I didn't want to see. That's why you approached me last night. You think I know something. His gaze softened slightly. Initially, yes. When I saw you at the hotel, looking so beautiful, so vulnerable, I thought perhaps fate had finally dealt me a winning hand. A mirthless smile touched his lips. Then you asked me to kiss you, and I forgot about strategy altogether. Heat rushed to my face at the memory. I didn't know who you were. Would it have mattered? Before I could answer, Lily's voice broke in. Mommy, I'm finished! Can I see the fishies again? The interruption was a relief, a moment to collect my scattered thoughts. Daniel signaled to Maria, who appeared as if conjured. Perhaps Maria could show Lily the aquarium while we have coffee, he suggested, his tone making it clear this was more than a casual offer. It was a chance to speak freely. I hesitated, maternal instinct warring with the need for answers. It's okay, Mommy, Lily said earnestly. Maria says they have a fish that looks like Dory. Just for a little while, I conceded, watching as my daughter happily took the housekeeper's hand. When they were out of earshot, I turned back to Daniel. I don't know anything about your sister. Mike never mentioned her. I believe you. His admission surprised me. If you'd known, you wouldn't have approached me last night. Then why am I here? Why did you give me that money? He studied me for a long moment. Because I've been watching you since your divorce, Emma. I've seen how you've struggled, how you've protected your daughter despite everything Mike took from you. You've been watching me? The revelation sent a chill down my spine. For 2 years? Not constantly, he clarified, as if that made it better. But yes, I've kept tabs on you. At first, it was to determine if you were involved in Mike's theft. Then, he paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. Then it was because I admired your resilience. That's not admiration. That's stalking. I pushed back from the table, hands trembling. I should take my daughter and go. Please don't. For the first time, there was something vulnerable in his expression. At least hear my proposal first. Proposal? I repeated, wary. He rose, moving to the edge of the terrace where the last light of sunset cast his profile in sharp relief. I want to find my sister and nephew. I want to bring them home safely. What does that have to do with me? Daniel turned, his gaze direct and unflinching. Your ex-husband knows where they are, or at least who has them. But he's disappeared, gone to ground since he realized I was closing in on him. Understanding dawned. You want to use me to get to him. I want your help, he corrected. Willingly given. And if I refuse, his expression didn't change. Then I'll have my driver take you and Lily home, and you'll never hear from me again. The money is yours to keep either way. The offer of freedom should have been reassuring. Instead, it left me feeling strangely hollow. Why would I help you? Because Mike didn't just steal from me, Emma. Daniel moved closer, his presence overwhelming in the fading light. He stole from you too, your security, your daughter's future. Don't you want justice? The word struck a chord within me. Justice. After 2 years of watching Mike walk away unscathed while I picked up the pieces, the prospect was intoxicating. What exactly would you want me to do? Contact him. Tell him you found something of his while going through old papers, something important. Arrange a meeting. I shook my head. He'd never believe that. And after today, he knows I've been in contact with you. Daniel's smile was cold, precisely. Tell him you're afraid, that you want his help getting away from me. His ego won't let him resist playing the hero, especially if he thinks it might hurt me in the process. And then what? You just show up and... what? Torture him for information? The words tasted sour on my tongue. I'm not a monster, Emma, despite what you may have heard. He stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. I simply want a conversation with him, one he can't run from. And my daughter, where does she fit into this plan? His expression softened at the mention of Lily. She doesn't. I would never put a child in danger. She could stay with Maria. She seems quite taken with her. I don't even know Maria, I protested. I don't know you. Then take some time. Get to know us. His hand found mine, the touch sending that same electric current through my veins. Stay the weekend, both of you. The suggestion was so unexpected I could only stare at him. Here? With you? The East Wing has its own entrance. Complete privacy. You and Lily would be comfortable there, and you could leave at any time. Why would I agree to that? His thumb traced circles on the inside of my wrist. A simple touch that somehow made it difficult to concentrate. Because you're curious. Because you want answers as much as I do. And because... He leaned closer, his breath warm against my ear. You felt something when I kissed you. Something you haven't felt in a very long time. I pulled away, cheeks burning. That's presumptuous. But not incorrect. His confidence should have been infuriating. Instead, it sent a forbidden thrill through me. Before I could formulate a response, Lily's delighted laughter rang out as she returned with Maria. Mommy, they have turtles too. Real ones. Daniel stepped back, his expression transforming into that gentle smile he seemed to reserve for my daughter. Did Maria show you the koi pond as well? Lily nodded enthusiastically. The orange fishies are as big as my arm. She stretched her small limbs wide to demonstrate. Mr. Russo has invited us to stay for the weekend, I said, watching my daughter's reaction carefully. Here, at his house. Her eyes widened. With the fishies and turtles? Yes, with the fishies and turtles, Daniel confirmed. And the swimming pool, if your mother approves. Can we, Mommy? Please. Lily clasped her hands together, the perfect picture of childish supplication. I hesitated, torn between caution and the naked hope in my daughter's eyes. How long had it been since she'd had anything special, anything beyond our careful, frugal existence? The preschool field trips I couldn't afford, the birthday parties at venues that cost more than our weekly grocery budget. We don't have any of our things, I tried, a weak protest. I can send someone to collect whatever you need, Daniel offered smoothly. Of course you can, I murmured. Lily tugged at my hand. Please, Mommy. I promise I'll be super good. Looking into her hopeful face, I felt my resistance crumbling. One weekend. A chance to understand what Mike had done. What he'd involved us in without our knowledge. A chance for Lily to experience something magical before we return to our reality. Just for the weekend, I conceded. And we leave Sunday evening, no matter what. Daniel inclined his head, something like triumph flickering in his dark eyes. Of course. Yay! Lily's joyous exclamation echoed across the terrace, her small body practically vibrating with excitement. Maria smiled warmly. Shall I prepare the east wing, Mr. Russo? Please. And perhaps you could show Lily the garden lights while I speak with her mother. As Maria led my daughter away again, I turned to Daniel. I want to be clear about something. I'm here to learn the truth about what Mike did, and maybe to help find your sister if I can. That's all. Of course. His tone was neutral, but something heated simmered beneath the surface. And I'll need to tell my neighbor where we are. She watches Lily sometimes. Give her my number. Tell her to call if she needs anything. The casual display of resources, the assumption that he could solve any problem with a phone call or wad of cash, reminded me of the vast gulf between our worlds. This doesn't feel real, I admitted. Yesterday I was just me, single mom, drowning in debt, invisible to someone like you. Today I'm standing in your home, agreeing to stay the weekend. Daniel stepped closer, his hand coming up to brush a strand of hair from my face. The gesture was gentle, intimate in a way that made my breath catch. You were never invisible to me, Emma. His voice dropped lower. From the moment I discovered your existence, you've been utterly fascinating. Because of Mike, I said, needing to remind myself of the truth. At first, yes. His honesty was disarming. But then I saw you with Lily at the park, teaching her to feed ducks. You were laughing, the first genuine smile I'd seen from you. I realized then that you were so much more than just a means to an end. The revelation that he'd been watching us during such private moments should have terrified me. Instead, I found myself wondering what else he'd seen. What other fragments of my life he'd collected like precious stones. That's still not normal, I said, though the protest sounded weak even to my own ears. Normal is overrated. His thumb traced my jawline, the touch feather light yet burning. Tell me you want me to stop, Emma. Tell me you feel nothing, and I'll step away. I should have said it. Should have maintained the boundary between us, kept our arrangement transactional and clear. Instead, I leaned into his touch, my body betraying what my mind still fought against. I can't, I whispered. His lips met mine with none of the restraint from the previous night. This kiss was hungry, possessive, his hand tangling in my hair to draw me closer. I responded with equal fervor. Weeks, months, years of loneliness and forced strength crumbling beneath the onslaught of sensation. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes had darkened to near black. Stay with me, Emma. Not just the weekend. I barely know you, I protested weakly. Then get to know me. His forehead rested against mine. I'm not a good man. I've done things I can't undo, carried burdens you can't imagine, but I would never hurt you or Lily, never. The raw sincerity in his voice pierced through my defenses. This dangerous man, this powerful figure who commanded fear and respect in equal measure, was offering something I'd never expected. Not just protection or financial security, but a chance to be seen, valued, desired. One day at a time, I said finally. Let's start with the weekend. His smile was slow, satisfied. The weekend, he agreed. Though I warn you, I can be very persuasive. The following morning dawned clear and bright, sunlight streaming through windows larger than my entire apartment bedroom. Lily had fallen asleep almost immediately the night before, overcome by excitement and the luxury of a bed that seemed designed for a princess, complete with gauzy canopy and more pillows than any child could reasonably need. I'd lain awake longer, replaying the kiss on the terrace, the way Daniel's hands had framed my face as if I were something precious. Trying to reconcile the man who looked at my daughter with such gentleness with the reputation that made hardened businessmen like Mike tremble. A soft knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. Wrapping a borrowed robe around myself, silk, of course, because nothing in this house was ordinary, I opened it to find Maria with a tray of coffee. Good morning, Ms. Ellis. Mr. Russo thought you might appreciate this before your daughter wakes. Her smile was knowing but kind. He's in his study whenever you're ready to join him. Thank you, Maria. I accepted the tray, breathing in the rich aroma of freshly ground beans. And thank you for being so kind to Lily last night. Her expression softened. It's been too long since this house had a child's laughter in it. She reminds me of Marco, Mr. Russo's nephew. I hesitated, then asked the question that had nagged at me since last night's revelations. Do you think they're still alive? His sister and Marco? Maria crossed herself quickly. I pray every day. Mr. Russo would know, I think, if they weren't. He and Sophia, they always had a connection. She shook her head, as if remembering herself. Your clothes have been brought from your apartment. Everything is in the closet. After she left, I sipped the coffee, the best I'd ever tasted, and tried to organize my thoughts. Today I would need to call Mike to set Daniel's plan in motion. The prospect left me uneasy, yet beneath the discomfort ran a current of anticipation. For 2 years, Mike had held all the power, had walked away with everything while I struggled to rebuild. Now finally, the scales might tip in my favor. Lily stirred, her small form lost among the mountain of pillows. Mommy? She called sleepily. I'm here, baby. I moved to sit beside her, smoothing back her tangled curls. She blinked up at me, then around at the opulent room, a slow smile spreading across her face as she remembered where we were. Is it swimming day? I laughed, some of the tension easing from my shoulders. Maybe. First, breakfast. With the fishies? We'll see. As I helped her dress in clothes that had mysteriously appeared overnight, perfectly folded in the massive closet, I marveled at the efficiency of Daniel's operation. Someone had entered my apartment, selected appropriate clothing for both of us, and delivered it here. All without disturbing my neighbors or leaving any sign of their presence. It should have felt like an invasion. Instead, it felt like being cared for in a way I'd almost forgotten was possible. We found Daniel in a sun-drenched breakfast room, newspapers spread before him, looking more relaxed than I'd yet seen him in casual slacks and a navy sweater that emphasized the breadth of his shoulders. He rose as we entered, that same softening crossing his features at the sight of Lily. Good morning, he greeted, coming around to pull out chairs for both of us. Did you sleep well? Your house is ginormous, Lily announced in lieu of a proper greeting. My room at home fits in the bathroom here. I winced at her candor, but Daniel merely chuckled. It is rather excessive, he agreed. Sometimes I get lost myself. No, you don't, Lily said confidently. Grown-ups don't get lost. Something like sadness flickered in Daniel's eyes. You'd be surprised, little one. Breakfast was a leisurely affair. Fresh fruit, pastries still warm from the oven, eggs prepared to order by a chef whose existence I'd only just discovered. Lily chattered continuously. Her initial shyness completely evaporated in the face of Daniel's patient attention and the wonders of his home. Maria says you have horses, she exclaimed between bites of pancake. Real ones. Daniel nodded solemnly. 3. Would you like to meet them? Her eyes widened. Can I ride one? Lily, I interjected. Mr. Russo is very busy. He doesn't have time to. I have all the time in the world for you two this weekend, Daniel interrupted, his gaze intense on mine. Nothing is more important. The simple declaration, delivered with such conviction, made my heart race. How long had it been since anyone had made me feel like a priority? Since anyone had looked at me the way Daniel did now, as if I were the only thing that mattered in his world. Swimming first, he continued, turning back to Lily. Then horses this afternoon, if your mother agrees. After breakfast, Daniel excused himself for what he called unavoidable business matters, leaving Lily and me to explore the grounds with Maria as our guide. The estate was even more impressive by daylight. Manicured gardens gave way to wild, forested areas, a small orchard nestled against one boundary, and beyond it all, the endless blue of the ocean. How long has he lived here? I asked Maria as Lily raced ahead, chasing butterflies along a stone path. This property has been in the family for generations, she replied. But Mr. Russo only returned here permanently after his father's imprisonment. Before that, it stood empty for many years. I tried to imagine Daniel as a child, running through these same gardens, living under the shadow of a father whose criminal activities had eventually landed him in prison. Had there been moments of normalcy, family dinners, birthday celebrations, ordinary joys? You've known him a long time, I observed. Maria smiled faintly. Since he was born. I was his mother's lady's maid, then housekeeper after she passed. What was he like? As a child? Her expression grew distant, remembering. Serious. Always watching. Always thinking. He took responsibility for his sister from a very young age. Their father was not an attentive parent. A shadow crossed her face. Russo protected Sophia from many things a child should never have to see. The revelation added another layer to my understanding of the complex man whose home we'd entered. Not just a powerful businessman with shadowy connections, but a brother who had spent his life shielding his sister from harm. Until Mike had betrayed that trust. By afternoon, as promised, we found ourselves at the stables. Daniel waited for us there, deep in conversation with a trainer. He'd changed into riding clothes, jodhpurs, and boots that should have looked ridiculous on a man of his stature, but somehow only emphasized his physical presence. "There you are," he said, breaking into a smile that transformed his severe features. "I was beginning to think Maria had kidnapped you for her own. We got distracted by the koi pond," I explained. "Lily named all the fish. Franklin is the biggest one," Lily informed him seriously. "He has a mustache." Daniel crouched to her level, a gesture I was beginning to recognize as his way of giving her his full attention. "That's very important information. Thank you for telling me." The trainer brought out a small, gentle mare for Lily, who could barely contain her excitement as Daniel lifted her into the saddle. I watched, heart in my throat, as he led her around the paddock, one hand on the reins, the other steadying her back. The picture they made, dark heads bent together, his large frame protectively curved around her small one, created an ache in my chest I couldn't quite name. "He's good with her," the trainer commented, coming to stand beside me. "Never seen him like that with anyone." I made a non-committal sound, unwilling to examine the implications too closely. After the riding lesson, Daniel surprised us with a picnic by the swimming pool. Simple sandwiches and lemonade that somehow tasted better in the sun-dappled shade of ancient oak trees. Lily, exhausted from her adventures, fell asleep on a lounge chair, her small face peaceful in repose. "You've created a perfect day for her," I said quietly, watching my daughter's chest rise and fall. "Thank you." Daniel's expression was contemplative. Children deserve perfect days, as many as possible. Speaking from experience, the opposite. His tone was neutral, but I sensed the weight behind his words. My childhood had very few perfect days, Sophia's as well, until I was old enough to shield her from the worst of it. "Your father," I guessed. He nodded once, sharp and definitive. "A cruel man who saw his children as extensions of himself, tools to be used in his business. Is that why she testified against him?" "Partly." His gaze drifted to the horizon, unseeing. "She was pregnant with Marco, wanted her son born into a different world than the one we inherited." The simple explanation contained volumes. A lifetime of difficult choices, of burdens shouldered too young, of trying to break free from a legacy of violence. "And you?" I asked. "Why didn't you testify too?" His smile was humorless. Someone had to protect her afterward. The FBI couldn't be trusted with that responsibility. The answer should have frightened me, the casual dismissal of law enforcement, the implication that he'd used extra legal means to ensure his sister's safety. Instead, I found myself understanding, in his position, would I have done any differently to protect Lily? "You need to call him," Daniel said, changing the subject abruptly. "Today." "Mike." Reality crashed back, reminding me why we were really here. "What do I say?" "That you're frightened. That I've been asking questions about him. About money he might have taken. That you need his help." Daniel's expression hardened. "He'll come. His ego won't let him resist playing the savior, especially where you're concerned. You don't know that. I've studied him for 2 years, Emma. I know exactly what motivates him." His voice dropped lower. "Greed, pride, and you." "Me?" I scoffed. "He left me with nothing. Because he couldn't control you anymore. You were becoming too independent, too strong." Daniel reached across the table, his hand covering mine. "He may not want you, but he can't stand the thought of someone else having you. Especially me. The possessive edge in his voice sent a shiver down my spine, not entirely unpleasant. Is that what this is about? You having me? His dark eyes met mine, unflinching. I protect what's mine, Emma. I always have. I'm not yours. Aren't you? His thumb traced circles on my wrist. That simple touch somehow more intimate than a kiss. Since the moment you asked me to kiss you, some part of you has belonged to me, and some part of me to you. The declaration was archaic, presumptuous. It should have sent me running. Instead, heat pooled low in my belly, a traitorous response to the intensity in his gaze. I'll make the call, I said, pulling my hand away. But I want to know your plan. All of it. When Mike arrives, I'll question him about Sophia and Marco. Where they are, who has them. And if he refuses to tell you, Daniel's expression turned cold. Everyone has a pressure point, Emma. For most men, it's physical pain or fear. For Mike, it's his reputation, his facade of success. I'll strip away the lies he's built around himself until the truth is all that's left. You won't hurt him? I needed the reassurance, not for Mike's sake, but for my own conscience. Physically? No. That's not my preferred method. The casual way he dismissed violence was somehow more chilling than a threat would have been, but by the time we're finished, he'll wish I had. I shivered despite the warm afternoon sun. And afterward? What happens to us? Something softened in his gaze. That depends entirely on what you want, Emma. What if I want my old life back? Just me and Lily, no complications. Then I'll ensure you're financially secure and walk away. The promise seemed sincere, yet I could hear what remained unsaid. He didn't believe that's what I truly wanted. Neither did I. I made the call that evening after Lily had gone to bed, her small body exhausted from swimming and riding and more excitement than she'd experienced in months. Daniel stood nearby, close enough to hear both sides of the conversation, but out of my line of sight, a deliberate choice to let me speak naturally. Mike answered on the third ring, wariness evident in his voice. Emma? What's wrong? I let fear seep into my tone. Not difficult given the circumstances. Mike, I need your help. Russo's been asking questions, showing up at my workplace. I don't know what to do. Jesus, Emma, I warned you about him. The smugness in his voice made my skin crawl. Where are you now? Are you safe? I'm at Melissa's apartment. The lie came easily. The name of a coworker he'd never bothered to meet. Lily's with my mom for the weekend. Good, keep it that way. There was rustling on his end, movement. Listen, I can help you, but you need to tell me exactly what he said to you. He mentioned money you took, something about his sister. I injected confusion into my voice. Mike, what did you do? Nothing you need to worry about. Classic Mike. Dismissive, patronizing. But I need to get you somewhere safe. Russo is dangerous, Emma. More dangerous than you can imagine. I caught Daniel's eye across the room, his expression cold as he listened. I'm scared, I whispered. And it wasn't entirely an act. I know, baby. The endearment, once beloved, now made my skin crawl. Meet me tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., at the old boathouse by Lake Harrison. Remember where we had our second date. A remote location, easily surveilled. Smart, but not smart enough. I remember. My voice wavered. Mike, please tell me what's happening. Tomorrow. His tone softened, the manipulative charm I'd once mistaken for love. I'll explain everything then. And Emma? Come alone. If Russo's watching you, he's watching your friends too. The call ended, and I set down the phone with shaking hands. He's coming. Daniel moved closer, his presence solid and reassuring despite the danger he represented. You did well. What now? Now we prepare. He pulled me to my feet, his hands gentle despite the hardness in his eyes. Tomorrow, we get answers. That night, sleep eluded me. I lay awake in the luxurious guest bedroom, replaying the day's events, trying to reconcile the Daniel who had patiently taught my daughter to ride with the man who had spent 2 years hunting my ex-husband for vengeance, the man whose kiss still burned on my lips, whose touch I craved despite every warning bell in my mind. When dawn broke, I found him already awake, standing on the terrace where we'd first talked, his profile etched against the rising sun. He turned as I approached, something vulnerable in his expression, before the mask fell back into place. "Ready?" he asked simply. I nodded, my decision made somewhere in the sleepless night. "Yes. Let's end this." The morning air held the crisp promise of autumn as we drove toward Lake Harrison. I sat in the back seat of Daniel's car, my hands clasped tightly in my lap to hide their trembling. Lily remained at the estate with Maria, a decision that had come easily once I'd seen how comfortable my daughter was in the housekeeper's gentle care. "You don't need to be afraid," Daniel said, breaking the tense silence. He sat beside me, impeccably dressed in a suit that somehow managed to look both businesslike and menacing. "I won't let him hurt you. I'm not afraid of Mike," I clarified. "I'm afraid of what I'll learn." The admission came unbidden, more honest than I'd intended. Daniel's hand covered mine, warm and steadying. "Whatever truths come to light today, you'll face them with me beside you." The simple promise shouldn't have meant so much. Yet as we approached the boathouse where my past and present were about to collide, I found myself drawing strength from his certainty. The boathouse stood on the edge of Lake Harrison, a weathered wooden structure that had once been charming but now bore the neglect of years. Mike and I had come here in the early days of our relationship, renting canoes and picnicking on the shore. The memory seemed to belong to another lifetime, another Emma. "My men have secured the perimeter," Daniel said as the car pulled to a stop in the gravel lot. "He's already inside. Came early to check for traps. He's expecting you," I realized. Daniel's smile was cold. "Of course. He's not stupid, just greedy and overconfident." He checked his watch. "Wait 5 minutes after I enter, then follow. Your presence will be useful." As he moved to exit the car, I caught his sleeve. "Daniel." His name felt intimate on my tongue. "Don't forget why we're doing this. Your sister and nephew. They need you to stay focused." Something flashed in his eyes. Surprise, perhaps, that I had seen through to his deeper motivation. He leaned across the space between us, his lips brushing mine in a kiss too brief to satisfy. 5 minutes, he repeated, then was gone. I counted the seconds, heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. When the time came, I stepped from the car into the cool morning air, my legs steadier than I'd expected. The walk to the boathouse door felt like crossing a threshold between worlds. The safe, predictable existence I'd built for myself and Lily, and something darker, more dangerous, yet somehow more alive. Inside, sunlight filtered through dusty windows, illuminating dancing motes and casting long shadows across the wooden floor. Mike stood with his back to the wall, his normally perfect appearance disheveled, fear evident in his wide eyes. Daniel faced him, his stance relaxed but alert, like a predator confident in its superiority. "Emma," Mike's voice cracked on my name. "Thank God. We need to leave now." "She's not going anywhere," Daniel said, his tone conversational despite the threat beneath the words. "Neither are you, until we've had our discussion." "I don't know anything about your sister," Mike protested, eyes darting between us. "This is all a misunderstanding." Daniel sighed, as if disappointed by such a predictable lie. 2 years ago, you accessed secure files containing transfer records to an account in Phoenix. 3 days later, my sister and her son disappeared from their home in the middle of the night. A week after that, you emptied your joint accounts and demanded a divorce. He stepped closer to Mike, who pressed himself flatter against the wall. "That's not a misunderstanding. That's a sequence of events. I was being blackmailed." The words burst from Mike, desperation overriding caution. "They said they'd kill me if I didn't get them the information." "Who?" Daniel's question cracked like a whip. Mike's gaze slid to me, then back to Daniel. "The Moretti family. They knew I worked for you, knew I had access. The name meant nothing to me, but Daniel's expression darkened perceptibly. The Morettis are in Boston. What business do they have with my sister?" "Your father killed Enzo Moretti's son before he went to prison. They wanted revenge." Mike was speaking rapidly now, words tumbling over each other. "They didn't tell me what the information was for, just that they needed account numbers, transfer records. And you gave it to them. Daniel's voice had gone dangerously soft. Then took the opportunity to help yourself to some extra cash before running. Mike's silence was confirmation enough. Where are they keeping Sophia and Marco? Daniel pressed. I don't know. A bead of sweat traced down Mike's temple. I swear. I just gave them the information. I never knew what happened after. You're lying. Daniel moved with startling speed, his hand shooting out to grip Mike's throat, not squeezing, just holding. A warning. The money you stole wasn't just from Emma. 200,000 came from my personal accounts. Too specific an amount to be random. Mike's eyes bulged. They told me to take it. Said it would make it look like I was just embezzling, throw you off their trail. And you kept it, I interjected, the pieces finally falling into place. You used it to start over with her, didn't you? While Lily and I could barely afford rent, shame and defiance warred on Mike's face. I needed it to disappear. They were watching me, making sure I didn't talk. Daniel released him with a look of disgust. Where would the Morettis keep hostages? Think carefully before you answer. Mike rubbed his throat, eyes darting between us. They have a compound upstate, old hunting lodge converted into a secure location. I delivered the information there. Address, Daniel demanded. I don't remember exactly. At Daniel's darkening expression, Mike hastily added, but I can find it. I have the GPS coordinates saved in an encrypted file. It was my insurance policy. A cold laugh escaped Daniel. Insurance against what? The people who would kill you for betraying them, or the man whose family you helped destroy? Both, Mike admitted, a hint of his old arrogance returning. I'm not stupid, Russo. I knew someday one of you would come looking for me. Daniel turned to me, his expression softer than it had been with Mike, but still resolute. Emma, return to the car. What happens next isn't something you need to see. Fear flashed across Mike's face. Emma, don't leave me with him. He'll kill me. I looked between them. My ex-husband, the man who had abandoned his child and me for money and a younger woman, and Daniel, the dangerous, complex man who had shown me more consideration in 3 days than Mike had in our final year together. He won't kill you, I said with certainty. He's not like you, Mike. He doesn't break his promises. Relief flooded Mike's features, until I added, but I want my money back. All of it. And Lily's child support, every missed payment with interest. That's impossible, Mike sputtered. It's gone. Invested. Figure it out. I cut him off, channeling some of Daniel's calm authority. Consider it your chance at redemption. I turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. One more thing. Both men looked at me expectantly. If anything happens to Daniel's sister or nephew because of what you did, I'll testify against you myself. Every illegal transaction, every tax document you forged. Everything. The walk back to the car felt liberating, as if I'd finally shed the last remnants of the woman who had once loved Mike Ellis, the woman who had believed his lies, who had accepted less than she deserved for fear of being alone. Daniel returned 15 minutes later, his expression grim but satisfied. He slid into the seat beside me, his presence filling the car with contained energy. He's alive, he said before I could ask, though his pride may never recover. Did you get what you needed? He nodded, holding up a small flash drive. Coordinates, security details, guard rotations. He was more thorough than I expected. Will it be dangerous? Getting them back? Daniel considered the question, his honesty one of the things I'd come to value most. Yes. But I've been preparing for this moment for 2 years. My people are ready. When do you leave? His dark eyes met mine. Tonight. The sooner we move, the less chance the Morettis have to relocate them. A hollow feeling opened in my chest at the thought of him walking into danger. I should take Lily home then. Or you could stay. His hand found mine, fingers interlacing. Wait for my return. The offer hung between us, weighted with possibilities. And if you don't return, Maria has instructions. You and Lily would be taken care of, protected. His thumb traced circles on my palm, the gesture becoming familiar. But I will come back, Emma. I have too much to live for now. The simple declaration, delivered with such conviction, made my heart stutter. We barely know each other, I reminded him, and myself. Sometimes a few days can reveal more truth than years of half-living. He lifted my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles. Stay, please. The night Daniel left with his team, I stood on the terrace where we'd shared our first real conversation, watching taillights disappear down the long driveway. Lily slept peacefully upstairs, her world still filled with swimming pools and horses and friendly housekeepers who spoiled her with cookies. He will return. Maria's voice came from behind me, her presence a comfort in the gathering darkness. I have known him all his life. He does not make promises lightly. What if something goes wrong? I voiced my deepest fear. What if the people holding his sister hurt him? Maria's expression was serene despite the gravity of the situation. Then we pray, and we continue. It is what he would want. The next 3 days passed in a strange limbo of mundane moments and paralyzing worry. I read to Lily, swam with her in the pool, tried to maintain normalcy while my thoughts constantly returned to Daniel, imagining him in danger, imagining him not returning at all. On the third night, I was awakened by the sound of vehicles on the driveway. I rushed to the window, heart in my throat, to see several black SUVs pulling up to the main entrance. Figures emerged, men moving with military precision, supporting 2 smaller forms between them. I raced downstairs in my nightgown, propriety forgotten in my need to know. The main hall was a flurry of activity. Security personnel, medical staff, voices calling for supplies and assistance. And then I saw him. Daniel stood in the center of the chaos, a small boy clutched in his arms, a woman leaning heavily against his side. His shirt was torn and bloodied, a gash visible above his eyebrow. But his eyes, when they found mine across the room, were alive with triumph and relief. "Emma," he breathed, the single word containing multitudes. I moved toward him without conscious thought, drawn by the gravitational pull that had existed between us from the first moment. As I reached him, the woman at his side lifted her head, her features a feminine echo of Daniel's. The same dark eyes, the same proud bearing despite her obvious exhaustion. "Sophia," Daniel said, his voice thick with emotion. "This is Emma. Emma, my sister Sophia, and my nephew Marco." The boy in his arms, perhaps 6 or 7 years old, regarded me with solemn curiosity. Sophia's gaze was more assessing, taking in my presence in her brother's home with a raised eyebrow. "So you're the one?" she said simply. Before I could ask what she meant, medical personnel surrounded them, insisting on immediate attention for their injuries. Daniel reluctantly allowed his nephew to be taken from his arms, his eyes never leaving the boy until he turned back to me. "You stayed," he said, wonder in his voice. "I stayed." His hand, scraped and bruised, reached for mine. "It's over. They're safe." "And you?" I asked, noting the way he held himself carefully, as if hiding greater injuries. "Nothing that won't heal." His smile was weary but genuine. "Nothing that matters now that they're home. Now that you're here." Later, after the doctors had treated his injuries, 3 broken ribs, a concussion, numerous lacerations that would leave scars to join others on his body, I sat beside his bed, watching him sleep. The powerful, dangerous man looked suddenly vulnerable in repose. His features softened. The weight of his responsibilities temporarily lifted. I thought about the journey that had brought me here. From abandoned wife to whatever I was becoming in Daniel's world. Not a victim, not a pawn, but a woman who had found her strength and her voice. A woman who had chosen to stay, despite the risks, because some connections were too powerful to deny. When Daniel opened his eyes, finding me still beside him, his smile held all the promise of dawn after the darkest night. "I love you," he said simply, the words unadorned yet profound in their certainty. In that moment, with my daughter sleeping safely down the hall, and this complicated, honorable, dangerous man offering his heart to me without reservation, I made my final choice. "I love you too," I whispered, the truth of it settling into my bones. "And we're staying. Both of us." His hand found mine in the darkness, fingers interlacing as they had from the first. Not a perfect ending. There would be challenges ahead, adjustments as we built this unexpected life together, but a beginning. Real and flawed and alive with possibilities, and that was enough.